I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. Been here all my life, and I'm the youngest of four, two brothers and one sister. And, had a real good childhood. We did everything that normal kids do back in those days. Outdoors, ride bikes, the whole 9 yards. And my mom was a hard worker, and father hard worker, and so forth. And with my mom, once she rededicated her life to the Lord and came into the message of the hour, her life just changed. And she was very, even though we wasn't raised in the message, but she had principles, very strict, certain things we couldn't do and could do. And when she came into the message, we could really see the change. I know me personally, I could see the change. She had a little bit more grace, but she still wasn't nothing to play with. But my mom is, not only a Christian, but she was in those times, she's still my friend. I'm married now, I have a whole family and everything. My mom was my best buddy, because whatever question or answer, whatever I needed to know, she was there. And I say this now, I'm her convert, because her life was to me so powerful. I could see God in her life, and that was through the supernatural, visions and dreams, and it seemed like everything was always directed at me. She had constant visions and dreams and things on me, and tell me what I'm gonna do the next day, and she just had such a way of putting things, to kind of make you pay attention. And what it did for me, it made me reverence God. It made me really realize that there is a real living God. Just watching her life. And can you imagine somebody tell you what you're going to do before you do it? Either that's going to bring a fear, or it's just going to make you just completely reverence and respect whatever they say. And it did both to me. It brought a fear of reverence to know that you better pay attention to whatever she's saying, because it's going to come to pass. I could go on and on about testimonies, but her life was just so powerful. I remember one time me and my three brothers stayed together, and she came over to the house. And when she came over, everybody just straightened up. It don't matter what you was doing. It was like God came in the house. So everybody just kind of like straightened up, and my brother was outside. Me and my brother was outside. He was trying to put a starter on his car. And what I'm about to share is just one of many. But he was trying to put a starter on the car. And my mom came up, and he rolled from under the car frustrated. He couldn't get the starter back in. He got it out, but he couldn't get it back in. And he was doing the same thing that he's always done. He's put a starter in before, but he couldn't just get this in. So my mom comes up, and he rolls from under the car frustrated, and I'm standing to the side. And she says, "What's the matter?" He said, "I can't get this stupid starter to go back in this car." She lays hands on the car, and she prays out loud. We're standing there, and she don't say bow your head or nothing. She just lays hands on the car, and she prays something like, "Lord God, you're real. Father, that they may know that you're a real God. When he go back under this car, help him get that starter back in." And then she walks in the house to see my other brother. She says amen and walks in the house to see my other brother. Now, we're still out there by the car. So after she prays, he goes back under the car. The starter goes in immediately. He rolls from under the car. I said, "Man, did you just see that?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Welcome to my world." Because things like that happen with me and her all the time. This was the summer going into maybe the beginning of school. So while I was at home, I had bad headaches, real bad headaches. but they wasn't as intense, during the summer. But the closer it got to school, the headaches got a little bit more intense, and I was having dizzy spells. So by the time I got back in school, the headaches were so consistent, and we thought it was just like migraine headaches or something, and then it started to be accompanied by fever. So one day I'm in school, and I'm in homeroom, and I had the headaches and the fever, and it was just unbearable, So I asked, could I go to the nurse? And that day I went to the nurse, and they couldn't really tell what was wrong. They were just thinking, you got a fever or whatever, you need to go home. So I may have went home that day and then come back to school, still having the same headaches and so forth. But now it's gotten so bad to where I can't even eat. Anything I eat, I can't keep it on my stomach. So, as far as drinking water, I couldn't even drink water without it coming up. So now I'm having a upset stomach. I got real bad headaches, and I have a fever. So I'm in class, and it's just like the beginning of school, in a homeroom, and it's just all coming down on me real hard. But this time it came down so heavy to where it was like I was just losing it. So I go to the nurse, and immediately she thought I was on some drugs. She thought, school and all the stuff that go on in school, because I'm in my 9th grade year in high school. And I get to the nurse, and she's doing her little diagnosis and all this stuff. Because the reason why they thought I was out of my mind, because they was asking me questions, and I was just giving them like crazy answers. For one, she asked me, did anybody give me any drugs? And I said, yeah. And it was like, who? I say, Alvin Orange. Because my older brother was going to school with me. He was 3 years older than me. I was a freshman. He was a senior. So they got him out of class and brought him down to the nurse, the room. And he's telling me all this later on, because I was just like out of it, because of everything that's going through in my head and my body. And for one, he was telling me that when they asked me, did I take any drugs? I said, yeah. And it was like, who? I said, the janitor. It was like, what's the janitor's name? I was like, Alvin Orange. Nobody's name is Alvin Orange. So now they're really thinking I'm on drugs. But it's just the pressure of the tumor and the fever and the unsettled stomach. So my chemicals in my body, everything is just getting thrown off. So from there, the nurse, she tries to do prognosis or whatever she's doing, and they can't really come up with any answer. So the only thing in their mind is I've taken some drugs. So the next thing they do is call my parents, and they take off from work, and both of my parents come and get me. And we go from there to the family doctor, and he's saying the same thing, because from the school nurse to the family doctor, they don't really have all the machinery that they have in the hospital. So everything is just whatever they see. And as far as what they saw a young man who was out of his mind. So to them, it looked like I was on drugs because of, the headaches and the talking out of your head and, and all the other stuff that was going on. So now we go to the emergency room, and the doctors are in there, and they're examining me, my eyes, and all these things, and they're still talking. It's still physical. They're still talking and all this stuff, and it's almost like they're trying to get me to admit I was taking drugs. I guess in a deeper way, because I already said Alvin Orange gave me something, but my brother was like, ain't no janitor at our school named Alvin Orange. So it was like everybody was puzzled. So the doctors told my parents they were going to give me some kind of medicine that would make me bring up everything I've had within the last 4 or 5 hours, I guess, within a certain time frame. So they give me this medicine, and if vomit is not too graphic, I vomit back up, and it's just all fluid, and I guess whatever. because I didn't even eat. I couldn't even eat anything. So it's just all fluid. And now the doctors realize that it's not any drugs, because in this, nothing else came up, because they thought I was maybe popping pills, which I've never had a history of doing any drugs. My mama would beat the life out of you. You was doing any drugs or anything. But now the next step for them was, one doctor, he said, well, we got to do a CAT scan, so because they're dealing with the headaches. And one reason why they did the CAT scan was because I couldn't go from standing up, from sitting down or laying down to standing straight up without getting dizzy. So anytime if I was sitting in a chair like this and I stood up, I would immediately get dizzy, almost to the point to where I would pass out or fall over. And the doctor said, well, we got to see what's going on. Let's do a CAT scan. So they take me down to CAT scan. And after they do the CAT scan, the doctors come back and say, we got to immediately operate. Immediately. He said, we found a tumor on his brain. And the tumor is pressing. It's pressing his brain. That's why he's having these headaches and the high fever and all these things. So, but they said the reason why I was getting dizzy, because the tumor was messing up my blood, something about my blood vessels. From standing up and sitting down, the tumor was pressing on that, and my blood wasn't flowing good. So the first thing they did was they went into surgery to put a shunt in me. And the shunt was to get my blood circulating again. So if you see this cut right here, people think I'm losing my hair, but I'm not losing my hair. That's where they put a shunt inside to help my blood circulate. And but then from there, it was like, after I came out of the surgery, they had to prepare to get the cancer out, because the cancer was doing the main damage. I was seeing double vision. I could be riding in a car with my parents, and on the right hand side of the road, and it looks like I'm on the left hand side of the road. So it looks like I'm running straight into the traffic. If you look at my eyes, the tumor was affecting this eye, so it pulled this eye over. It looks like it's a lazy eye, but that's just the effects of the tumor, of the cancer and so forth. So all these things are going on. And one thing about a tumor, it's, if it's aggressive, it'll try to wipe out everything in its path. And this one I had was pretty aggressive, so the doctors wanted to operate as fast as they could. So once they got the shunt in, and they got my blood circulating like it was supposed to, then they could operate. And I don't remember the time span between operating, but they had to get the cancer out, which they had to go in the back of my head. That's where your brain at. So they had to cut me open. They cut me open and they pulled the cancer out, whatever they could get. But them doing that, and my mom told me, she said she really believed it was the Lord keeping me, because in the recovery room, they couldn't wake me up. She said the doctors would come and they was thinking that I should be woke by now and all these things. And I don't know the exact time span, but my mom was in the intensive care recovery when I woke up. She was by my bedside, and she was like, man, the doctors was thinking, why hadn't you woke up, and all these things, and they thought something had went wrong. And she was saying to me, it was just the Lord keeping you. So now I get up and, I got all these stitches and pain. I had 27 staplers in the back of my head from them cutting me open. And I still had the shunt, in the front. So I had stitches in the back, and I had stitches right here. Well, I actually had staplers in the back of my head. And I had stitches right here that ran a tube all the way down to the middle part of my stomach, where they cut it off. So I had stitches right there in my stomach too. And you talking about some pain. It was hard to laugh without hurting. But this is recovery now. My mom's telling me everything that go on, and and the doctors just watch me and everything was running smooth. So now I'm in recovery and everything's all right, but they have to keep you to make sure your healing process is good. Doctor comes in and he begins to talk to me and my mom about, the operation, as well as the tumor being cancerous and so forth. And the next thing comes out of his mouth is he begins to explain, the cancer and how it'll move through your body. Because say one thing about cancer, if they try to grab it, a tumor, they try to grab as much of it as they can. But a lot of times pieces of it breaks off and it flows through your body. So he told me there was a 50-50 chance that none of the cancer could come back and it's not spreading through my body, or it could be spreading through my body. So he says you need to take chemotherapy and radiation treatment. So I'm not even familiar with either one. So he begins to break down the chemo. I mean, not as far as the medicine and what it is, but the effects of the medicine. And he told me that it would stunt my growth. And all these are possibilities. It could stunt your growth. It could mess up your cell count where you're not able to have children. I was only like 5'5" then. So stunt my growth, not able to have children, make you sick, and your hair come out. So I'm looking at him like, this is supposed to help me. And they're like, yeah, this is supposed to help you, but it's a 50-50 chance that it will help and it won't help. So the doctors, they dropped that news down on me, and me and my mom sit in the room and they leave, and they give you time to think about it, and I'm thinking about it, about all the effects of what he said. And now my mom comes in with strictly the word, and she comes in and she says, son, you don't have to accept this. You don't have to accept this cancer in your body. Jesus Christ paid the price at Calvary. And I'm just a young guy who don't know anything about God. I can see, that my mom has had a conversion and her life was powerful and all these things, but me knowing God, it was nothing about me knowing God or, hearing anything about the message. I was just clueless. But now I'm at a stage where it's like life and death, and immediately the doctors say no more football, because, the brain tumor, so that dream is gone. And now that they've left, it was 2 doctors came in, they've left the room with the diagnosis of taking chemo and radiation. So my mom, she begins to talk about Calvary and what the Lord has done, and how the prophet says you don't have to accept this, and, and all these things, about divine healing in Isaiah 53. And I can't really put a grasp on everything, but when she went to Isaiah 53 and she began to say, by his stripes you're already healed. You don't have to accept this. God already healed you before the foundation of the world. And I don't know if it was revelation, but to me it seemed what she was saying was so convincing. And I thought, what did I have to lose by depending on God? Because all the doctors gave me was a 50-50 chance, so, and they would say either to come back or it might not come back. So now my mom was presenting the gospel to me, and try Jesus, take Jesus. So in my heart, in my mind, this was how I responded. And I said to myself that, I don't have nothing to lose by trying Jesus, because doctors tell me that I'm going to die if I don't take the chemo and radiation treatment. So I say, well, only thing left for me to do is try Jesus. So I tell my mom, I'm not going to take it, because what she said, it was it seemed so convincing that God was real. So in my heart, I was asking God, Lord, if you're real, if you're really a healer, if before the foundation of the world and by your stripes, Isaiah 53, I'm real, this is real. I say, Lord, prove it to me, because I'm going to accept it right here in this hospital. Prove it to me. So maybe an hour or so later, same 2 doctors come back in. Before they get there, my mom, she asked me, whatever you decide, whatever decisions are made, you're going to make the decision. She said, for one, if you take it, I got your back. If you don't take it, I got your back. Whatever you decide, I'll be here with you. So I just said, I'm not going to take it. And she said, okay, well, you don't have to take it. She said, also, the scripture says, if we touch and agree, we touch and agree about this, God will hear our plea. So we prayed, she led the prayer, and we prayed right there, just believing God for a true healing. And now we done prayed, and maybe an hour or so, the doctors come back in. I forget the time frame. But they come back in and with a smile on their face. And this always blows me away. Why doctors are always smiling when they got to bring bad news or whatever kind of news, So it's just things I'm watching. And the doctor comes in, he's like, well, what do you decide? And I look at my mom. She didn't say a word. She let me do all the talking, because she was like, whatever it is your decision, because you're going to have to live with it, So I look at the doctor and I say, I'm not taking it. And he immediately, it's just like his whole countenance changed, and he's priming me and pushing me and talking about death, and you can die and all these things if you don't take it, and how patients ended up when they didn't take chemo and all these things. And and he went on and until he saw me crying, because he started talking about death and all these things. And no young person wants to hear about death, and knowing that your heart is not where it's supposed to be with God. So he didn't let up until that particular point where he saw me, tears coming out my eyes and all this stuff. And he actually thought, that was going to change my decision. But even though with the tears, I still told him, no, I'm not taking it. So he looks at me and he says, this is not a game. This is not a game. He said, we could go out this room and we could make a decision without you. Not knowing that my mom had already told me, whatever you decide, that's going to be the decision. And I didn't see it till years later, but by her, and it's very important for parents to present that Jesus can hear your child, that Jesus can hear a child's prayer. And what she did for me by allowing me to say, no or yes, my faith was activated, because it was my words that God was going to listen to. So I'm like, no, I'm not taking it. And the doctors are, they just can't believe that I'm not going to take it. They found cancer and all these things, and everybody normally takes it, smooth sailing. Let's set it up. But I'm like, no, I'm not taking it. So they go into this another speech about this is not a game and all this stuff, and we'll make a decision without you. And they even tried that. But my mom was actually told him that, no, he say he ain't taking it, and I'm not going to push him to take it. So it was whatever I said. How the scriptures say, whatsoever you say. So, doctors, they left, but by no means did they feel defeated, because a lot of times they have patients who go through so many things and they're not sure. So they'll come back at other times. And they did. They began to leave certain stuff in my room, books and tapes on cancer to try to get me to read up. And I had two good nurses, one nurse named Joan, and I remember them to this day. One nurse named Joan was just a real sweet lady, used to always rub me on my arm before she give me a shot and tell me I'm such a good patient, and then I just had like this spontaneous nurse named Gloria, who would this was during the time of the Olympics. So she would come in my room with just such a joyful and happy spirit, talking about the Olympics and everything, which would kind of lift me up, because I was still in the hospital, and so now I get to the place to where they're leaving all the stuff in my room, and different people would come in, and ask me, they at the hospital, they work like a team. If this person don't get you, they'll send somebody else in, send somebody else in the team, and they did that. This person come in with books and tapes and reading cancer, and it was just stuff coming out that was beyond me. It was just God fighting the battle. And they asked me why I didn't read about the cancer and listen to the tapes. And my answer was, why read about something I don't have? So, and years later I could see that was God, doing that for me. But he was building a faith in me that was already there, or should I say releasing a faith. So they'd come back and, read this and read that. And I'm like, no, what I'm going to read it for? I don't have cancer. So they'd do that for a while. They sent another person up. I forget what this, because I was on a children's floor. So they had everything on this floor was supposed to be a fun floor and all this stuff. And one guy came in. He asked me, did I like the amusement parks? And between North Carolina and South Carolina, we have an amusement park called Carowinds, which I've never, I think at that time, it's been a long time since I had been. So he comes in and he's asking me, do you like amusement parks? And I'm like, yeah, I like amusement parks. He said, would you like to go? I was like, yeah. And he says, good, because all the cancer patients are going to Carowinds. And my response was, well, y'all going by yourself, because I don't have cancer. Again, it was just God giving me all the right words to say at those times. And, and that kind of went on. And, like Jesus, his fame spread throughout the country. So everybody in the hospital now knows that I'm a young guy who's professing that he's healed, even though the doctors and the nurses are saying I got cancer. So I'm healing up pretty good on the natural side. But maybe some weeks later, a nurse comes in. And this is not Joan and not Gloria, but this is another nurse. And she's kind of mean, And she has a envelope in her hand. And she says, one thing about professing your healing, Satan gonna make you prove it, whether you believe what you're saying. And like I said, I had my pastor coming up bringing me tapes, and one of my favorite messages he brought up was one called the cream of the crop. He said when God pulls it out, God pulls out the cream of the crop. So I felt like I was the cream of the crop, not knowing anything about God, but I could just feel that God was just doing something in me, just building a faith relationship, and I can speak all these things now because I see where it was going, but at the time I didn't catch the magnitude of it. I was just believing God, and in the midst of all that, I did get a piece of radiation treatment, but just a piece of it, and it was horrible, where they just it wasn't a full treatment, but they just kind of went down one side of my body, and I didn't like that at all. So I told them, I said, no, I don't want no radiation either, So now that their hands are tied, they can't do anything but just try to get me to accept their different treatments while I'm in the hospital. So one day this nurse, she comes in, and she's a real nurse, so she comes in with all her paperwork and all this stuff. She says, come on, we're going down the CAT scan. I'm like, for what? She says, because the doctors see a lump on your neck and it's cancer. I said, I don't have no cancer. She says, you want to bet? I say, I do not have cancer. She said, you want to bet? I got the x-rays right here saying you got cancer. I said, I do not have cancer. So we're going back and forth, and mind you, I'm only 15 years old, but I just began to believe God. So she's, priming me and pushing me that I do have cancer. And she has this envelope with x-rays with this, I still have a scar over here on the side of my neck where they cut me to do a sample, and they said that was, before she got there, they said that was cancer. So they said it was spreading through my body now because of that lump over here. So we're going down the CAT scan, and they want to see how much of it is moving. So I'm still saying I don't have cancer with your x-rays or nothing. So we go down the CAT scan, and she's on and on and on. And why don't you accept what these doctors are trying to save your life, and all these things. And they say you'll be a vegetable if you don't take this chemotherapy and this radiation treatment. And she's going on and on and on. And I'm just kind of sick of her, just hearing her. And I'm telling her I'm healed. By His stripes, I'm healed. So we get down the CAT scan, and and one thing about CAT scan is like a big old a tube where they lay your whole body in, and this thing examines your whole body from head to toe. So I'm in this thing, and they can actually play music, and I'm like, put it on the gospel channel, I'm feeling good about God. So, they put on gospel music, and I'm sitting in this machine, and I can hear it going back and forth, and I'm not even praying. I'm just like, I'm healed. I'm healed. I'm healed in Jesus' name. I'm healed. So we come out of CAT scan, same nurse. She's walking. I'm in a wheelchair because procedure is to have the person in the wheelchair go down in the wheelchair, because I didn't want to get in the wheelchair. I'm like, I'm healed. I don't need no wheelchair. So we get out of CAT scan. She says, get back in the wheelchair. And we're going back up. From the CAT scan room to the elevator, she's quiet. She's not saying a word. So when we get off the elevator, it's just like something dropped in my heart that say, ask her, what did they find? So I just kind of, over my shoulder, was like, did you find anything? And she was like, real arrogant and mean, no, we didn't find anything, and rolled me down the hall. Was like, let me get this nut out my sight. So from there, it was pretty sure to me that God was real. And I didn't have to accept any kind of treatment, no nothing, no chemo, no radiation. Only thing they did, they kept drawing blood, and everything came back good from the time I was there. I was in the hospital for 18 weeks. And mainly that was the healing of my head and my different cuts and stuff. But, no cancer ever showed up again. It didn't spread through my body. Now, mind you, she had x-rays saying I had it. But after the CAT scan, they didn't find anything. The x-rays was everything came back negative. So from there, I just really knew God was real. And that part of my life just kind of really excelled to know that there was a living God. And and that God was mindful, even as a young person, what you was going through just to try Jesus. And by me trying Jesus, I meet every situation just like I met that situation. Even when I was losing my eyesight, at one time before I became a full-time minister like I am now, God was trying to get me to go full-time, but I'm like, no, Lord, I ain't ready for that. So I started losing my eyesight because I was a truck driver by profession. So the only way God could get me out the truck, because I'm like, Lord, you're going to have to do it. We tell God that all the time, and you just don't know how God's going to do it. So every time I'd get in the truck, my eyes would close. And it got to the place where I told the Lord, I'm not going to quit. So I end up driving one day, and I just lost my whole eyesight and everything. And just from God healing me of cancer and me not knowing what's going on with my eyes, I'm saying I'm healed. In Jesus' name, I'm healed. I'm like, Lord, if you can heal me from cancer with no treatment, no nothing, me just believing your word in Isaiah 53, Lord, you can heal me from this. And this is, mind you, this is years later. This is several years later. But I went into that trial with the same attitude, with the same faith, knowing that if God can heal me from this, he can heal from that. And as you can see by looking at me from this camera, my eyes are open. But, just believing God and professing that, by his stripes I'm healed. That's real life substance. That's not a mystery, but that's real. The word is real. And if we could really just let our faith anchor down in what God has already said, it's up to God to prove it. If you can believe it. And let me say that, it did get kind of hard, when I got out the hospital, because it was like my body was adapted to being in a hospital, the temperature in the hospital and all these things. So when I got out of the hospital, it was like I got a fever, so the devil was saying, oh, it's coming back, it's coming back. My mom and my aunt, they, because I didn't have the Holy Ghost, but I believe God. God honors faith, and I'm healed, but it seems as if the devil wanted to try to get me to believe it. We all prayed, my mom was on the phone praying with my aunt, and she laid hands on me and we prayed right there. And I never even had another symptom from that day. I never had another symptom. I never had another run-in with headaches and fever and all that stuff. It just shows that when God heals, he really heals. And the thing I love about it, whoever will be watching this testimony, you'd never know unless I tell you. You know, that's what I love about the goodness of God. When God does something, he does it to a perfection. You know, so I just really thank God, you know, for all he's done. And I wouldn't change anything for any of my testimonies, even that experience of cancer. It was a revelation inside that God was trying to bring out of Jehovah Rapha. And the only thing that could bring out Jehovah Rapha was God allowing cancer to come. And it was because of cancer that I met that supernatural God. So the devil gets no credit. He gets no credit. All the credit belongs to God. Only thing cancer did for me was brought me closer to the Lord. The living God, Jesus Christ. It's to me, it's real simple. You know, God loves to prove himself. And I believe for a person that's looking for Jesus, the reason why you're looking is because he's trying to reveal himself. You know, and it's as simple as, like I was on that hospital bed. You know, I'm standing between life and death. Now, I didn't so-called live playing football and basketball and all these things, my childhood. You know, but now death is staring me right at the face. And then here comes the gospel of Jesus. Only thing left I have to do is saying, Lord God, if you're real, take over this part of my life. And I believe, you know, in these times, this is what we have to do. We have to, as a person in certain situations or predicaments, I believe what you need to do is just try Jesus. Say, Lord, take over this part of my life. You know, if you're sad, you know, the Bible says the joy of the Lord is my strength. If you need healing, it says by his stripes we're healed. Whatever area you're going through in your life, God is the answer. So the greatest plea or the greatest answer to that question I can give is just try Jesus. You know, and let me say this, it is not all about in those times, at those first times, you go to this church or I go to that church or my mama's this or my daddy's this. I think the most important thing is for you to make a real contact with God. For God to show himself real in your life. And if God can, if we could let our own control and our own way of wanting to handle things, we could push all that aside and say, God, here I am. Now you show me the next step. God, you prove to me that you're a healer. You prove to me that you're a deliverer. I guarantee you God will prove himself, because God loves a challenge. You know, and it's just the power of the blood. The blood has never lost its power to save or to heal or to deliver. And I believe that for anybody that's struggling, you know, all you need to do is just believe Jesus. You know, try Jesus. You know, he's a living God. You know, this testimony that I'm sharing, it goes with me every day of my life. I can hardly preach without sharing this testimony. You know, and sometimes I've said it to the same church, you know, the same places I go, but it's so relevant to my life because it's a living God. It's not something that happened in history, but it's something that I'm living right now. I'm living a cancer-free life. You know, when I come in contact with people who's taking chemo and all these things, and it wasn't years later until I realized that the prophet said chemo is poison, killing poison. You know, so I just really thank God. Just try Jesus. Jesus, you know, like they say in an old song, Jesus is the answer, you know, to the problem of the world today. You know, just try Jesus, you know, because when everything else fails, you know, the gospel stands true.
When he was on the backside of the desert, he said he saw the pillar of fire. He said his faith was then anointed, not by what he heard from his mother, but what he saw in the burning bush. He said it was the word seeing the word.
My name is Kidrija Diggs. Trust me when I say I've experienced the power of a living God.